Sure is quiet here.
Because you walked in.
Is that what it is? We'll get. Sorry. All right. No, you. Oh, yeah. My name is Brian Day, and I'm fortunate enough to be the executive director. And I want to welcome you all this morning about economic development in our community. As the locks and dams had not been invested in. The interstate that you drove out here, small millage back in the early 1960s. The return on that investment that the citizens made is immense. Impact from Jay Cheshire here in a few minutes. But this is what I would tell you. The Port of Little Rock is 5,000 acres in size. There's 10,000 jobs that are created by the 50-plus businesses that are located here and believed in what the City Board of Directors wanted to accomplish. And you're going to hear some of those stories in just a second. But I want to again welcome you to the port. It is Arkansas's largest economic development engine, creating 10,000 jobs for families. So now I would like to introduce Mr. Jay Cheshire, the Director of Little Rock Regional Chamber of Commerce, who's going to talk a little bit more about the specifics of that economic development. Jay?
Thank you, Brian, and thanks to all of you this morning for coming out and sharing with us this amazing news about more people working today in the Metro Little Rock region than ever before. And one of the biggest reasons for that is because of the citizens of Little Rock, the mayor and the City Board of Directors continuing to invest in our economic development work. So as you can see from the slide behind me, in the most recent 5 years, we've seen a $30 million investment from the city in terms of infrastructure and land acquisition here at the port, as well in just a second. But you can see that $30 million, not only $100 million in private investment, but it also has helped us generate additional both the local, state, and federal level. So you can see that $30 million investment that the city has made recently here and recently at the Little Rock Tech Park obviously continues to pay dividends. Brian talked about talks about the results themselves that this investment. 2020, you've seen projects representing not quite 11,000 new jobs, bringing $427 million payroll, 40 project wins, and you're going to see those names and where those companies are located here in the port in just a second, representing $1.8 billion. And we talk about how important that is for the people of Little Rock and the Metro Little Rock region in terms of jobs and opportunity. And we talk about the capital investment and how all of these are economic. Often also talk about is what this does for the other people within our community that are coming behind us. When you look at $1.8 billion in capital investment, the school taxes alone that are created districts so that the children of Little Rock and the Metro Little Rock region are able to continue to gather and have access to an education that's first of all world class, but secondly, continuing to be invested in because there's new money coming in to invest in those as well. And so when you look at the port success, again, since 2020, These are the specific jobs, the specific projects that we're talking about. We will provide the port, or excuse me, the media an opportunity to have information that you can take back with you. So you don't feel like you have to take pictures of all of this. We're going to give you this information. But this gives you an amazing opportunity to look at the breadth and depth of what that city investment looks like. I want to go back. In 2007, we announced the Wellspun project here at the port. When we announced it, we talked about the Wellspun project going on what was supposed to be the port's expansion property. Think about that. In 2007, with the Wellspun project, not only did we fill up the then port, but we also filled up what we expected to be the port's expansion land. Things changed. The people of Little Rock in 2011 agreed to reinvest more money into the port. And that reinvestment created more jobs and more companies and more land and more product. And again, in the last 4.5 years, you see what that $30 million additional investment from the city has been able to create. So this is certainly a great success story, but it's a success story that now goes back 20 years because of the investment of the city of Little Rock and the citizens of Little Rock in our economic development success. And as we go to the next slide, I want to show you what we're talking about going into the future. Some of you have seen some of this, but you'll see all these yellowed sites that we're currently working on, either trying to acquire or trying to finish acquiring the property that's needed to make these, especially these larger sites, contiguous with each other. This is what we're looking at from an investment standpoint going forward. I had the opportunity to visit with the city board last week and talk about some of this in terms of what we're working on right now with Brian Day and with Fred Long and with all of the partners of the port and the staff here at the Port Authority in what we're trying to do to create the what's next. So this gives you an idea of what that next investment that we're asking for the opportunity to make, to grow and to continue the growth of this port, and also from the perspective of not only the port and the Metro Little Rock region, but game-changing types of projects. And so when you look at the Port West site, as we call the F site, when you look at the E site, which is the mega site, these are things that take significant amounts of money to create what's called shovel-ready sites that attracts generational type changing economic development. And I'll give you an example of what some of those look like in other communities. So as you can see, our mega site comparison, which was this site that you saw on the bottom right that we're in the midst of developing, this gives you an idea of what those kinds of projects look like that have landed in other places that made these kinds of investments. So whether it's Baldwin County, Alabama, whether it's the Memphis Regional Mega Site, whether it's the Georgia Hyundai Mega Site, you see that these numbers are significant when it comes to not only the jobs themselves, but when you look at this investment, what again that means for our schools, for the people of Little Rock, and the opportunity that we have to not only provide more jobs and really good paying jobs continuing to come, but at the same time to invest in all aspects of our community because of what these companies provide when it comes to this type of investment. So we look at those jobs, and yes, those are big numbers, but really that's the icing of the cake. That's not the cake. The investment itself is what creates generational changing economic development, not only for the city, but for the surrounding area as well. So this is why, when you look at what we're trying to invest and looking at our next slide, when you look at what we're trying to invest in, it's these kinds of announcements that we're looking to create. And what's interesting, when you look at what other states are doing, this is our competition. You know, we talk about being competitive. It's not with another community within our state. Our competition is the rest of the United States when it comes to these kinds of projects. You can see what Tennessee invested in the Memphis megasite to create the Ford deal, what Georgia invested to create that project, what Mississippi is currently investing in site development alone. And this is why what the city has already done, what the mayor and the city board have done with their leadership in the $30 million they've already invested out here, with the success that we've had, this is what this begins to look like with the what's next on that site slide that I showed you a few minutes ago. So put that in perspective. When you look at our surrounding states, this is what they're currently investing in site development. We were able, through Jack Thomas and the leadership of our economic development team with Brian Day and others, to go to the legislature with the governor and ask for a site development fund to be created. So yes, the state of Arkansas has invested some money here at the port, but this gives you an example of what our surrounding states are already doing. We're just now getting to this point, and obviously the city of Little Rock is a leader in this process because, as you can see, it has already invested in its own citizens in this metro region of $30 million in just the last 4.5 to 5 years. So as we go forward, one of the things that we're always asked is, so what does it take to make these kinds of investments, to create these kinds of sites? And so what we've done is just given you some examples of that type of investment when it comes to what we have to do to be competitive in the marketplace. Whether it's railroad access, drainage ditch relocations, relocation of roads, due diligence and site development, all of those things, and you can see the numbers associated with just what we're working on from that previous slide, from the sites that you saw there. These are the kinds of investments we have to make before those sites are actually something that companies will consider. So that's why when you look at what's going on at the port, and we invite you to go with us to take a look at what these buildings and this site infrastructure and all of this looks like as we end this conference this morning. When you see those things, when you see that new road that's going from north to south that didn't exist a year ago, it's those types of site infrastructure investments that have to take place before you can get to the actual win itself. And then lastly, when you look at the bottom of this, you know, one of the things that we also asked the citizens of Little Rock to invest in 2011 was the creation of the technology park. And at the time, nobody really knew exactly what that was going to become. But not only did it become a success, we're actually halfway through the second phase expansion of it right now. And so you're seeing from the perspective of the tech park and the investment page that you saw below, what it is that we're now doing to take that piece of our economy and grow it as well. I go back to, what does this investment help us do? It helps us not only take care of ourselves, but it also helps us educate those coming behind us, the talent of this community and this region, that whether it's in advanced manufacturing, distribution, or technology, we need for tomorrow. And so while we are investing in the port, we're also investing in technology and downtown and many other places that you're going to hear about over the next few months. So this talks a little bit about that process. When you look at the companies that have been generated not only from the creation of the park itself, but the companies that have been attracted from all over the country and the world and the jobs that they've been able to provide, this is what economic development is about. So as we finish the process of what we're talking about today, and we go to that Next slide. It's one thing for us to say it. It's one thing for this team to talk about it. But it's another thing to see it talked about from the perspective of those people we're trying to attract. Watch this little video.
We're going to begin tonight with the Port of Little Rock adding even more international flair to its operation.
LOPAC plans to construct its first U.S. production facility in Little Rock.
The company sells all types of cartons, more than 14 billion every year.
From all the locations I looked at, Little Rock wasn't the biggest place. It was the smallest. But it acted big, thought big. And you see a lot of investments that are not for now, but they're for later.
Little Rock thought big. It acted big. And interestingly enough, in just this morning's paper, you saw where this company, LOPAC, has already invested an additional $25 million in the project that's not even finished yet, that wasn't part of the original announcement. That additional investment goes to show you the confidence that companies have in us, in you, the citizens of Little Rock and Metro Little Rock region. So I'm going to end with, first of all, saying thank you. Thank you to the gentleman I'm getting ready to introduce. Thank you to his counterparts, our elected officials on the city board. Saying thank you to, obviously, the members of the Port Board, the members of the Tech Park Board, all of these people who are giving of their time and their effort, and in some cases, blood, sweat, and tears, to make this place what we all know it can be, not only through these investments, but through the leadership that it takes to make these kinds of investments. The quarterback of our economic development team is no stranger to anyone. We have had the opportunity to travel with him not only across the country but across the world. In talking with these companies, obviously, we've had significant success. He represents a city board that truly gets it. And obviously, as the quarterback of our economic development team, we're pleased to always be able to walk into any room in the world, knowing full well that what we say we're going to do, we not only deliver, but we deliver and over-deliver while we're delivering. That was kind of poetic. Would you please welcome with me the mayor of Little Rock, Mayor Frank Scott Jr.
Thank you, Jay, and thank you for your very detailed presentation about Little Rock's economic and our state's economic engine. Before I give my remarks, I want to make certain very clear. These numbers we see before us, I believe, Jack and Jay, this is our second or third year leading the state with new jobs. It's something that many people in our state may not be aware of. But the buck stops when it comes to jobs in the city of Little Rock and the Little Rock region in central Arkansas. The numbers prove it. I'm happy to report that not only does the Little Rock region lead the job way, but when you really look at that number in 2023, that represents 59% of all new job growth in this entire state. And then when you dive into those numbers a little bit more, Little Rock city proper represents 35% of that 59%. We are growing our city, our region, and our state. And it doesn't happen without the leadership of Jay Chester, Jack Thomas, the entire Little Rock Regional Chamber, 50 for the Future, all of our local economic developers and real estate agents and things of that nature. But also, it doesn't happen without our Little Rock City Board of Directors. And before I give my comments, I want to recognize and ask and extend brief remarks to Ward 1 City Director Virgil Miller, as well as Ward 5 City Director Lance Hines. Virgil Miller, the Port of Little Rock is inside Ward 1. And with Director Hines, he is a port liaison from the city board. And both of them voted for our penny investment proposal that asks the citizens and the residents of Little Rock to make certain that we focus on more growth through investment to the Little Rock Port, as we've been discussing today. Director Miller, then after Director Miller, Director Hines.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank all of you for thank all of you for being here this morning. I am the proud representative of the board of Ward 1. But let me tell you something. Ward 1 is everybody's living room, it's everybody's dining room, and it's everybody's economic engine. And so when I see these numbers, and I see these plants, and I see all this investment, let me tell you what else I see. I see people. I see families. I see people coming to Little Rock. And what that means is that we got to be prepared for all of that. This is just one piece of the puzzle. So when we are investing in the port, when we're seeing these numbers, we're investing in people, you guys. We're investing in families. And what makes our city, when we talk about the city, and we talk about the neighborhoods, and we talk about the wards, we're just talking about people. The best we can be is when we have good people. This helps us do that. And Mayor, I want to thank you for your leadership. Director Hines, I want to thank you for your leadership on being the board liaison here. I want to thank the whole board for stepping up and supporting our investments in the city. So thank you, Mayor, for letting me have some remarks. Director Hines, let me turn this over to you.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Virgil. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Mayor, for the introduction. You know, one of the things that it's real interesting that Virgil brings up, people. I think the biggest thanks need to go out to the voters of Little Rock going back to 2011. And it's really interesting to see the success we've had for really a small investment in the port. We actually made a bigger investment at the tech park at the time because it didn't exist. To see the success that have gone on both places is very integral in the investment we're getting ready to ask our voters to go out and make in the city again. It's a much bigger investment, and I think Jay's laid out the reasons why. When we came to the voters in 2011 for $10 million for the port, it was strictly to acquire land. One of the things that Brian Day, our port director, took over, that was really just the inkling. I think we had the attitude, let's get this on the books and we'll figure the rest out. So what we're asking now for is a much more strategic vision in the ask we're doing. It's to ask for not only land acquisition, but to get it shovel ready. That's rail, that's power, that's sewer, that's hopefully a southern connection to the port. It's kind of amazing to see, just if you drive around the port now, to get from one end of it to the other can take you 20 minutes. Back when I got on the board in 2010, it wasn't that big. So again, we appreciate our voters in Little Rock for making an investment in our community. And we're going back out in November and asking for an even bigger investment to help us continue to do even greater things. Mayor, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Director. We've had a lot of speakers. We shared a lot of information, so this Baptist preacher won't be long. Here's the deal. Little Rock Port is our city and our state's top economic engine. It's time that we refuel that engine. The Penny investment proposal has $30 million to refuel that engine, to make certain that we not only double this number, we triple this number. The city of Little Rock does not compete with any other city in the state of Arkansas. We compete with the likes of Chattanooga, Nashville, Charlotte, Oklahoma City, and even across this globe. And as we want to continue to remain competitive, we have to refuel the growth for the people of Arkansas, the workforce of Arkansas, and the long-term future of Arkansas. And in that refueling of that growth, we reproduce the jobs. We've seen close to 11,000 jobs over the past 5.5 years. We've continued to top the charts in the past 3 years in this entire state. It's not magic. It's proper planning, proper property and purchasing of land and acquisition, because Little Rock has become a true distribution and logistics hub because of 4 things: river, rail, road, and runway. all intersect in Ward 1. We are one of few cities in the South that can do that. And that's the reason why we can think big and act big when we're talking to companies like Elopak. So we're asking to refuel, we're asking to reproduce, but in doing that, we are reinvesting into the people of Little Rock, we're reinvesting into the port, and by understanding this, in this proposal, we know we have growing pains. That's not a bad problem to have. But in the midst of understanding we have growing pains, we can solve our issues by making this reinvestment. And so we're asking the residents of Little Rock that on November 5th, we stand united within the city board and myself, a unanimous vote to invest in our city for the long-term future. That's the decision we want to make today, tomorrow, and in the future. Thank you so much. We'll take any questions. Brian, Jay, and Director Hines, Director Mills, you guys will come up too.
Mayor, I have a question for you. I just want to make sure I understand. So of the penny sales tax, 30 million going to the port dedicated, is that correct?
The total amount as for what we call investment into the port, I believe it's 22 million that goes 8 million that goes directly to the port, 22 million that goes into incentives. The 8 million, as we understand today, we are virtually landlocked here in the Little Rock Port Authority, and so we want to purchase that 8 million, go directly into building our mega site. We also understand, as we've that the 22 million economic incentives will also focus on more utilities and infrastructure that 9 times out of is somewhere else within the city limits.
All right,
Can I make an add to that? Because I think this is, I think sometimes this is confusing to folks. When we talk about the 8 million and the 22 million is set aside to do what we call public infrastructure and additional land acquisition. So when the city makes an investment as an incentive for a company, it can't write a check and say, here, company, do whatever it is you want to do with this money. That incentive from the city has to be in public infrastructure, which is why, because we don't quite yet know what that infrastructure investment will have to be to make those projects work, if that makes more sense.
So yes, but again, just to be clear, so the $22 million, right, for infrastructure, get that. Related improvements have to be directly tied to the port.
No, sir.
Or can they be anywhere in Little Rock for jobs?
They can be any, in fact, you saw the 5 million for the remainder of the second phase of the tech park. So it's not strictly just tied to the port, no, sir.
So $8 million only is dedicated solely.
Yes. Yes. Next question.
I might add, I was supposed to tell the press that there's a QR code that you can tap on or take a picture of it. Everything up here was virtual. I forgot to do that. Jack, sorry.
Got it right now.
All right, seeing no other questions, thank you so much.